It was 2:00 a.m. and Ibrahim Traoré was still in his office. Phones rang incessantly. The central bank president economy minister and several advisors were in an emergency meeting. Dire news flashed on the screen. French banks had halted money transfers to Burkina Faso. The IMF had suspended loan payments and the CFA franc was being withdrawn from the market. The country's economic collapse could begin within hours. Traoré slammed his fist on the table. This is how they've controlled us for years. Even our money isn't our own. He turned to his team and outlined a plan so bold that everyone stared in disbelief. "We can't do this," said the finance minister. "Nobody has ever done it." Traoré smiled. "Then we'll be the first." The tension in the presidential palace's meeting room was palpable. Outside, the lights of Ouagadougou sparkled while inside Burkina Faso's future hung in uncertainty. Ibrahim Traoré walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back, gazing out with thoughtful eyes. "How much in reserves do we have?" he asked, without turning. Dr. Amina Konate, the central bank president, consulted her file. Officially 1,400 million, but most of it is held in accounts in Paris. We can't access it now, and gold, Traoré pressed. We have 78 tons of registered gold reserves. Dr. Konate hesitated. But that too is in France. Traoré gave a bitter smile. Economy Minister Ousmane Sonko shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. President, you need to understand the gravity of the situation. Threatening to leave the West African Economic and Monetary Union and rejecting the CFA. Franc is economic suicide. Suicide." Traoré turned fire in his eyes. "Or liberation. Tell me, Sonko, how can we be independent when we can't even print our own money? The CFA franc is the last chain of colonization." Sonko spread his hands. "All of Africa uses this system. Mali, Niger, Senegal, all of them, and all of them remain perpetually poor." Traoré countered, approaching the table. "Do you know why? Because every time we print a banknote, we must deposit dollars in the French treasury. We pay them to use our own money. Is this freedom?" The room fell silent. Everyone knew Traoré was right, but there seemed to be no alternative. For 70 years, West African countries had used the CFA franc, a French colonial monetary system. Independence was merely a piece of paper. Real power remained in Paris. Dr. Konate took a deep breath. "Mr. President, we all know you're right, but practically what can we do? We don't have the infrastructure to create our own currency, no printing presses. And if people start withdrawing money from banks tomorrow morning..." Traoré placed a file on the table. "That's why I've been secretly planning this for the last 3 months. The advisors stared at the file in surprise. "Operation Sankara," Traoré said, invoking Thomas Sankara's unfinished dream of financial independence. When he opened the file, everyone gasped. Inside were detailed plans for a new currency to replace the CFA, Franc Burkina gold. "This is impossible," stammered the finance minister. "Our foreign exchange reserves aren't sufficient without international recognition." Traoré smiled and pulled a small shiny disc from his pocket, a gold-colored coin with a baobab tree on one side and the country's map on the other. "A prototype of the Burkina gold," he said, "made from 100% domestic gold, extracted from our own mines, processed on our own soil." Dr. Konate searched for words. "Foreign companies control our mines. They monitor our gold exports." Traoré's eyes gleamed. "Not anymore." The economy minister jumped to his feet. "You nationalize the gold mines." "When officially?" "Tomorrow morning," Traoré said calmly. "But the operation began 3 hours ago. The army is now securing all mines. French and American company executives are being politely escorted to the border." The room was stunned. The move was bold, dangerous, but clever. "What about boycotts?" Sanctions? Asked Dr. Konate. The West will do everything to crush us. Of course they will. Traoré confirmed, but to punish us they need access to us, and this is where the second phase comes in. He pressed a button, and a world map appeared on the screen highlighting Russia, China, Iran, Turkey, India, and Brazil. For the past 6 months we've made secret agreements with these countries, Traoré said. Direct trade in their own currencies bypassing the dollar or euro. We'll sell our gold directly to them and they'll provide the technology and products we need. I didn't know about this, said the economy minister, his voice trembling. You didn't need to know, Traoré said kindly. If French intelligence had sensed even a hint, the financial blockade we're experiencing today would have started months ago. Dr. Konate held the coin to the light. Beautiful, she said. But will people accept it? Habits don't change easily, Traoré smiled. People have stored gold with jewelers for years. We're offering them something of real value instead of worthless paper money. But the real punch is here. He opened another file containing designs for digital wallets. The Burkina Wallet. Traoré said, a free mobile app for every citizen. A gold-backed digital currency. 100% transparent, secure, and most importantly, completely outside the Western banking system. The finance minister shook his head. This is crazy and brilliant, but how will we convince the people? Just then, Traoré's assistant entered. Mr. President, the connection is ready. Traoré turned to his team. Convince the people. Let me show you. Woo! The large screen flickered on, displaying leaders from 5 other African countries. Mali, Niger, Guinea, Togo, and Benin. President Traoré began. I believe we've all received the same news. The West has pulled its economic weapon again, but this time we're prepared. I want to share our plan. 2 hours later, when the meeting ended, fear had given way to determination. Ibrahim Traoré looked at his advisors as dawn broke. Dawn is coming, he said, not just in Ouagadougou, but across Africa. Dr. Konate closed her laptop. Will you make the announcement to the people tomorrow morning? Traoré shook his head. No, I'll do it now. People should know the truth before they go to the bank. They should feel pride, not panic. His request for an emergency broadcast on national television was approved within minutes. As the team prepared, Traoré examined the prototype coin one last time. The gold gleamed under the morning sun. Thomas Sankara, he whispered, as if addressing the revolutionary leader's spirit today. We complete your unfinished work. At 6:30 a.m., as the people of Burkina Faso prepared breakfast, they were surprised to see President Traoré on their televisions. He stood in his military uniform, calm but determined. People of Burkina Faso, he began. I appear before you in these early hours to make an important announcement. Last night, French banks and Western financial institutions launched an economic war against our country. They cut off our access to money, stopped transfers, and canceled loans. In homes, cafes, and on street screens, people exchanged concerned glances. You know why they did this? Traoré continued. Because we want our independence. Because we demand control of our resources. Because we say, Burkina Faso belongs to the Burkinabe. The camera zoomed in on the gold coin in his hand. From today, we stop using the colonial currency, the CFA franc. We start using our own money, the Burkina gold, a currency backed by 100% domestic gold carrying real value. He held up his mobile phone, showing the app glowing on the screen. And this is the Burkina digital wallet, distributed free to every citizen. You no longer need banks for your money. The digital gold will be directly in your wallet. People stared in amazement. For some, this was a frightening change. For others, a long-awaited liberation. Don't worry, Traoré said, as if reading their thoughts. All the money in your CFA franc accounts will be converted to Burkina gold at twice the value. No one will lose. Everyone will gain. Small cries of joy and whispered questions echoed across the country. But most importantly, Traoré continued. We will control our money. We will determine our destiny, and we are not doing this alone. The screen split, revealing the faces of other West African leaders from Mali, Niger, Guinea, Togo, and Benin, all conveying the same message: they were leaving the CFA franc system on the same day, switching to their own gold-backed currencies. "This is not a revolution," Traoré said. "It's an evolution. The final link in our independence. Now we are truly free." When the speech ended, something extraordinary happened. Instead of rushing to banks in panic, people began discussing the Burkina digital wallet app, which they were downloading on their phones. It was simple, sleek, and most importantly, theirs. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. In Paris at 7:45 a.m., the French central bank was in an emergency meeting. The executive responsible for the Africa desk stared at the screen in horror. 6 countries left the system simultaneously, he said, trembling. "This is a coordinated move." "And what's more," the bank president asked impatiently, "the digital wallets have been downloaded millions of times in just a few hours. People are accepting this. There's no run on the banks." The president reached for his phone. "I need to call the Ministry of Finance. We must start sanctions immediately." "The ministry is already calling," said the assistant, extending the phone. The voice on the line was panicked. "The mines are gone. Energy agreements canceled. Permissions for military bases revoked. All of West Africa is slipping out of our control." In Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traoré sat in his office monitoring international reactions. As expected, Western media painted doomsday scenarios. Economic collapse begins in Africa. West African countries commit suicide. Traoré condemns his people to starvation. But unexpected messages of support poured in from Russia, China, India, Turkey, Brazil, and South Africa, offering congratulations, cooperation, and promises to recognize the gold-backed currency. Dr. Konaté entered. Excited. "You won't believe it, Mr. President. 4 million people have downloaded the app. That's nearly a fifth of our population." Traoré smiled. "People have tasted freedom." "Konaté, there's no going back now, and what's more," Dr. Konaté continued, "there are thousands of downloads from other African countries. Ghana, Congo, Senegal. Everyone is talking about this." A week later, Ibrahim Traoré stood in a small village square surrounded by villagers. An elderly farmer looked shyly at the phone in his hand. "I don't know how to use this." "Mr. President," he said. Traoré sat beside him. "Let me show you," he said, gently. "When you press this button, your wallet opens. Here, you can see how many Burkina golds you have." The old man's eyes lit up. "This is the real value of my money." "Yes, Father," Traoré said, "and no one can take it from you. Freeze your account or stop your transfers. This is your freedom." The villager pressed the phone to his chest. For the first time, he said, voice trembling, "I feel like my money is safe with me." This simple sentence underscored the significance of Traoré's actions. This wasn't just an economic move. It was a psychological liberation. IMF and World Bank analysts had predicted Burkina Faso wouldn't last weeks. A month passed and the economy held. 2 months passed and trade volume increased. 3 months later, Ibrahim Traoré was invited to the BRICS summit. At the Moscow meeting, world leaders listened intently to Traoré. Eastern and southern countries were eager to learn about West Africa's bold move. "The gold standard was abandoned 50 years ago," said the Russian leader. "Your return to it is quite interesting." "We haven't gone back to the past," Traoré replied. "We're moving to the future. Digital gold backed by our own resources. This is next-generation independence." The Chinese leader leaned forward. "Your digital wallet technology is impressive. It could offer an alternative model for the global financial system." After the summit, the agreements Traoré signed for his country sparked panic in the Western press. Direct energy and military agreements with Russia, technology and infrastructure projects with China, medicine and agriculture cooperation with India, food security programs with Brazil and industry, and education partnerships with Turkey, Western headlines screamed Burkina Faso, moving away from the West. Traoré's dangerous game. But Traoré smiled as he flew home. "We're not moving away from the West," he told Dr. Konate. "We're moving closer to the whole world. We no longer have a single master. We have many partners." On his phone, the Burkina digital wallet app glowed. The statistics were impressive. 12 million active users, 2 daily transactions across 6 countries, 0 downtime, 0 hacks. 6 months later, West Africa's gold-backed currency evolved into the African gold, with 14 African countries joining the system. The CFA franc faded into history. Ibrahim Traoré was now seen not just as a national leader but as a pioneer of a continental movement. At the opening of Burkina Faso's new central bank building, he stood at the podium. Behind magnificent gold-plated doors, the country's gold reserves reclaimed from the West were securely stored. "Today, we're not just opening a building," he told the crowd. "We're opening a new page in our history. Once our gold was kept in foreign vaults. Now it's here on our own soil under our control." As the crowd applauded, a woman in the back wept. She was Thomas Sankara's widow, the revolutionary leader killed in a 1987 coup. "He would have loved to see this," she said, shaking Traoré's hand. Financial independence was his greatest dream. "We're bringing his vision to life," Traoré replied. "But we can do this only because of the seeds he planted." At the newly established Burkina Technology Center, young engineers developed a new version of the digital wallet app powered by blockchain. Technology energy efficient and entirely designed by Africans. Burkina Faso had not just created a currency, it had built an ecosystem from mining to refining digital technology to security, all designed by Africans for Africans. The IMF president spoke to cameras with a forced smile. "Our dialogues with Burkina Faso and its allies continue. We are examining their new currency system. Translation. We can no longer stop them, we have to deal with them." The French president embarked on an Africa tour promising a new beginning to former colonies, but no one believed the old stories anymore. At a press conference, an African journalist asked, "How do you assess West African countries' transition to gold-backed currency?" "We respect their independent decisions," the French leader said tensely. "But I'd like to warn about the risks." Laughter erupted in the room. A year later, Ibrahim Traoré stood at the United Nations General Assembly podium. His speech was short but powerful. A year ago, 6 countries took a bold step. Today, 22 African countries use the United African Gold. Our inflation rate has dropped. Our trade volume has increased and our technological investments have tripled. Western delegates shifted uncomfortably. They told us we couldn't do it. Traoré smiled. They told us we would collapse, that we would starve. But we didn't tell them anything. We just did it. Unending applause filled the hall. An African nation had freed itself from centuries of economic bondage, and this was just the beginning.